Thank you. Hello and welcome everybody to my presentation on One Love, One Future-Proof German Cannabis Industry. So my name is Lisa Katharina Haag. I'm the CEO of MJ-Universe GmbH. I have a diploma in business administration and a bachelor of business. MJ-Universe GmbH is a strategic consultancy along the value chain of hemp and cannabis, together with external experts. I call them the special agents of MJ-Universe. I'm also the publisher of the industry magazine crowdinvest.de, for those who know it. For the English speakers, there's an auto-translate feature in your browser. It's in German, but it's also easily accessible for you. And I'm also a founding member, board member, and coordinator for the segment THD. It means Technology, Trade and Services at the Branchenverband Cannabiswirtschaft WCBLeaders, which is the German industry representation. What we will be talking about today, I have four main talking points. On the one hand, I'll be talking about constellations, mapping market potential across segments. Then we'll be talking about exploring green galaxies in terms of commercial restraints and opportunity, the universe beyond the leaf, broadening the industry's footprint, and cannabis catalysts, basically factors accelerating global change through Germany. So let's talk a little bit about the constellations. We in Germany, we have reform that came into place very surprisingly for some of us. I personally was not expecting it because I was calculating for the worst case scenario, which was it will not come, but surprisingly it came. So we have some reform happening across all segments, and normalization has already started. But still, our market is pretty opaque, uncertain, and under-complex. It's viewed under complex, and we're not seeing the complexity in this thing. I also wanted to emphasize on one term that I'm hearing regularly. It's called the term black market. In my opinion, it's not concise enough. So before we go into that discussion, and also considering that it's our biggest competitor, I want to make some distinction in the term black market, because there are different black markets or gray markets, if you want to say so, starting with illegal markets that are, it's basically product traded without compliance with applicable laws and regulations, often in organized crime settings. We have parallel market, that is something that is marketed outside of authorized channels. We have infringement markets, which is basically deceiving customers by imitating genuine products or copying IP, such as branding, packaging, and functionality. We have unregulated market, lack of non-existing or non-existence of regulations. That's basically the HHC topic that we have at the moment here. And we have the licit legal markets that are fully compliant with regulation. So I just wanted to make sure that there is a good understanding of that term here. In order to understand where we are at, there is a very interesting publication by Transform. It's called How to Regulate Cannabis, a Practical Guide, 3rd edition. The big pink line that you see here is from that book. We basically moved from the left-hand side a little bit more down to the bottom, and we have a now more regulated market. But in my opinion, we should really have a look at the different policy options per segment. What I mean with that is, like, you have the segment of adult use cannabis or adult reform cannabis, whatever you want to call it. We have the medicinal market, and we also have the hemp market. All of these are highly limited, also through the status of a narcotic drug beforehand, but now also through the cannabis laws. So just to give you a quick update on what happened and relevant changes per segment, I put a little overview on what has remained and what has changed per segment. In the industrial case, we still have the intoxication clause that is currently discussed within our government to be dropped. We still have the EU seed catalog that is relevant, and we still don't get rid of the topic of novel food. What has changed? We have less administrative hurdles now, for example, for our farmers, and we have a better commercial framework in B2B topics, or more certain that you can at least act in certain way. For the pharmaceutical part, it's the reimbursement has stayed, and the magistral preparation is still a magistral preparation in the pharmacy, but it's not a narcotics prescription anymore. Plus, the narcotics rules apply, but the Med-Can-G, that's the name of the medicinal part of the law, rules apply. In adult reform, we still have the illicit market that is happening, and no commercial trade is allowed. But on the flip side, we have decriminalization happening, home growing, grow clubs, and also scientific pilots in all kinds of varieties. And also a big part that is coming up now more and more, and that I'm also representing within our industry association, is the ancillary part, where they have an existing customer base. They know about the limitations in advertisement, but whereas the social media platforms became way more open-minded towards the topic of advertisement, but what they definitely see is also an increase in demand and new conventional stakeholders going into the topic of cannabis. So why is there a continuous necessity for policy development on a global scale? Outside of Germany, cannabis is still a narcotics drug. We also have been criticized as for our legalization efforts by the International Narcotics Control Board, whereas it's important to say that they put it wrong in their report, because we did not legalize cannabis in Germany, we decriminalized, and we are still in compliance with the Single Convention, which is a very important aspect. So what is also happening is that we have highly fractured markets, like even within Germany and within the different segments. But also across Europe, we have very heterogeneous rules, laws, and regulations with existing bottlenecks that all of us need to work on. And also, I personally believe that there's a big lack of understanding of the true potential of cannabis as a commodity across segments by category on all sides of the table. What do I mean by that? Cannabis, in my perception, is a plain commodity, and it can be applied to different segments, and then it needs to be marketed appropriate to its category, and then the rules of the category applies. But with this on all sides of the table, that is something that is in continuous development also on the regulator side, where there needs to be way more communication, education, and so we get these topics across. So let's talk a little bit about the commercial restraints that we have. We have live regulations with many uncertainties and open ends. We see that, for example, for the grow clubs, but that there are still some things that still need to be developed. We still have a highly punishable environment and the risk of accidentally breaking the law. We still have the stigma and the THC thinking blockage and false information that is in the people's heads. And we have an intense investment backlog, lack in capital and funding, combined with a lack of corporate commercial readiness and strategy, in my opinion. And the next battlefield, in my opinion, is going to be the protection of IP, which has been very controversial in cannabis, because there are certain things that has just existed for a very long time, or where there are ongoing patent wars, for example, for strains, for extraction methods, so on and so forth. So this is one of the next battlefields, in my opinion, and will definitely pose a restraint on the industry. But we also have a great commercial opportunity. For example, if you're already active in the market, you have the possibility to advance your first mover advantage. We have newly emerged commercial opportunity across segments and unexplored target markets, target groups from the customer perspective. And also what is possible now easier in Germany is tapping into the backlog for scientific research. Formerly, that was purely with the Ministry of Health. All the scientific pilots have basically been declined. Now this has changed, and we have the scientific development of scientific drugs with the German Medicinal Agency Ministry, and the scientific part is with the Ministry of Agriculture, which makes a lot of things easier, and which also means that you can already do research into plants today. So what is a big opportunity is creating a first mover advantage and grasping market share advantages through Pillar 2. Pillar 2 is the commercial evaluation with scientific partners of cannabis. if you are brave enough to do that, and you will invest in future market share that nobody can take of you. So I just want to recommend to all of you who are interested in that to move forward, to be brave, and to just try to bring these projects forward, because they are very essential in grasping future market share. So what do we have at the moment? Before, we basically had like a little bit, it's more in the OG industry and the legal cannabis industry today, but this has now extended because the term or the area of legal cannabis has just extended. We had a couple of auxiliary industry topics that are already present and that will be more relevant in the future, like for example legal, laboratory, agency services, and all those kind of things. But now through the reform, there is more possibility also to create an environment industry, which means the possibility for banking, the possibility for insurance, but also very interesting topic that is coming up now with the clubs is, of course, for external services for facility management and those kind of things. That's my original background. So I think that there is still a little bit of a detach here. Like on the left side, you see the conventional industries, the pharmaceutical, FMCG, food and beverage, agri-tech, so on and so forth. Those kind of players, they will be hesitant to go into the market, and they will try, they will let us open the field for them. Yeah, it will. We've seen this in medical. First, there were some specific medical companies. Now, more and more pharmaceutical companies start to move into that market. But there is also a big detach between specific topics for cannabis, that is with regard to education, with regard to harm reduction, drug policy development, and I don't know who of you know this term. It's called alternative development. That basically means, in the old sense of it, it meant you go into a drug producing country, you take, for example, the coca plant, and you replace it with books. Now there is a new perspective on that. It means let's replace illicit value chains with licit and legal value chains. So in my opinion, that's a great possibility, and especially important for the cannabis producing countries, because many of those are in developing economies. So for my last point that I want to talk about is cannabis catalysts. Why are they so important? I think one of the most critical success factors that we need in this industry is a degree of professionalization and deployment of central and reliable resources and knowledge. That's also one of the tasks that I've taken on within my working group within the industry association, that we want to provide all kinds of technology services, suppliers to the now emerging industry. Something that is also very important and that I just want to emphasize on more is for all of you to join in on continuous lobbying efforts through associations, like for example the IHA, our association, or one of the many other associations that exist, that we can lobby for improved and more harmonized rules and regulations across Europe. Also, considering that we have EU elections coming up, and we have, for example, for CBD, different rules and regulations in all countries, and that is actually something that is not so smart in a trade environment, what the European Union usually is. So what should we also try to push more is to enable collaboration between the industry and regulators through think tanks comparable to Digitalrat. The Digitalrat in Germany is an expert gremium that is called by the government with independent expert for digital topics in that case. I'm wondering for a very long time, and I have suggested it to our drug commissioner already, to get a Cannabisrat also, that we have this commission here with experts, with independent experts, that we can all work together to come up with these rules and regulations, and so that nobody comes up with it like with a just like a perception of it, but with like true tangibility, and also for us to operate it. There is also something that is very important, is to walk the extra mile, in my opinion. I'm from the services background, so for me it's normal to walk the extra mile, but many will just stick to the minimum requirement. In my opinion, the companies who do voluntary obligations will be a little bit further down the road and faster down the road. One thing that is missing a lot also in Germany is public campaigning and educating the general public. The government does that to a certain certain extent, but they also leave it to us, also for the medicinal part. They say you talk to the producers if you want to know anything about products. Also learning of the mistakes of, or learning from comparable industries or from the mistakes of comparable industries, just like so we can do better than big alcohol, big tobacco, big pharma, just to have like maybe, because we are just opening up this industry, to have more, to learn from that and do a better job. Also, proactively approaching regulators with specific initiative solutions. For example, we just now launched the industrial hemp laws, a suggestion to the government that we have, because we as an industry association feel that there are not enough rules and regulations to clearly handle those aspects also of industrial hemp. So we will suggest to the government now an industrial hemp law. Also setting appropriate industry standards beyond legal requirements, for example, quality labels, declarations of commitments. Those are all things that are up to you and where you can give an added service that will help accelerate your brand. Also something that is very important, maybe also in the context of Pillar 2, is creating tangible experiences, business cases, and data through scientific research. So again, this is something that can accelerate your growth. So the last part of my presentation is to support your local activists and non-government organizations like GERO, for example, over there from ACM-SCM. These are detached key stakeholders who are independent and accelerators of change. They can help you fuel your business, but you have to have a good relation. And also, I'm a big fan of the people who have the money should give the money to the people who do the work. So it's actually us who are doing the patient advocacy or the activism, and that need to be supported more so that there is like more happening. The local activists and non-government organizations, they hold competencies in relevant questions and key areas, for example, patient experience, harm reduction initiative, or alternative development initiative, which can be useful to support also in terms of your corporate social responsibility, just another buzzword. And also to change, has been a change in the perception of advocacy through a shift in focus on social justice, sustainable development, and human rights, for example, through UNGAS 2019. If you don't know what that is, that has been like a reform within the European Union to be dedicated to more human rights focused perspective. So thank you, and I will see you in a Q&A session, and I will hand over now my microphone to, one second, I have to pull it up quickly. Alicia Radcliffe from KD Futo, and she will talk about cannabinoid product manufacturing best practices and lesson learned. And that's it from me. Yeah. Later we have Q&A sessions where you can come to. It's like, I don't know if we have time because we are on a very strict schedule.